Hey again, it's Jason from Fraser Valley Rose Farm. Today I'm talking about Bokashi composting. I made a video, say a year and a half, 2 years ago, that talked about why I don't do hot composting anymore. And while I still stand behind most of what I said in the video, it was a pretty clumsy way to go around it. I ended up spending so much time trying to logically go through my objections to hot composting that I kind of glossed over the final solution that I've arrived on, which is Bokashi bucket composting, and I didn't do a very good job of explaining what that is. So I'm going to try to rectify that today. So Bokashi bucket composting is in a double stacked bucket like this. The top bucket is filled with the food waste, and the bottom bucket is like a spot where the liquids can drain off of that as it begins to rot. Now, you heard it right, I'm trying to get you to rot your food, or maybe even a better term would be to pickle your food. It's going to encourage those acidifying bacteria that's going to pickle this into a cold compost that you can then incorporate into your garden, and it will very quickly then become organic matter for your soil. I like this a lot better than the hot composting systems for some of the reasons I mentioned in my other video, but I wanted to go through the benefits very quickly here so that you understand them. I'll put a graphic up that talks about some of the things that you're advised never to put into your hot compost, or at least some people advise it and some people don't. So for instance, if you talked about meat and dairy, certainly those are often warned off of hot composting systems, whereas if you have leftovers of meat, dairy, or even small bones, you can put those into your Bokashi waste, and that's fine. It's a different process and it works fine in here. Other things like oil, citrus peel, sometimes onions or garlic, they don't recommend that you put into hot composting systems. Those are fine here as well. I even saw somebody say leave acidic foods like tomatoes and pickles and sauerkraut out of your hot compost. Bread is sometimes mentioned that way. Again, with the Bokashi composting system, no problem. It all goes in the same bucket. So the learning curve for managing this is much, much lower. And the amount of food waste that you can put into it is much more inclusive. So that's my first big reason. My second one comes down to practicality. And what I like about this is that it doesn't take a lot of time for me to take. I take a bucket of my food waste from upstairs where my family puts their compost in after meals and so on. And every couple of days, actually, maybe even up to 3 days, I take that bucket, I come down here, I drop it in this, and then I use a bit of Bokashi bran. The Bokashi bran is just an inoculant. What it does is it introduces some of the right bacteria into this bucket so that it will begin to pickle a little bit faster and maybe ward off some of the chances of a bad bacteria or fungus taking over and making it a little more stinky. You can leave it in here for a length of time. And in my experience, in the warmer weeks, it's probably about a 3-week cycle or 3.5-week cycle that I use before by the time I'm finished filling this, 3 weeks later, it's fully pickled or fermented. And from that point there, and I'll show you this later in the video, you can take that and put it in the ground. Other benefits include that during this time that it's fermenting in there, there are no rodent problems. It's sealed. It's no scent to you, no smell in the house, and there's very little in the terms of all the other troublesome things that you have to do with hot composting that add to the learning curve and add to the time that you have to add to them. And I'll give the example of balancing carbon-nitrogen ratio. So you have to go in there and you have to add some leaves, add some greens, add some food waste, bury it, that kind of thing. And the second thing is all that turning. In the hot composting system, you have to turn your compost to try to keep it aerated so that it will break down and heat up. This one here does not rely upon heating up, and it does not rely upon aeration. It's an anaerobic process with the bacteria, so you don't need that for the Bokashi composting. And finally, this is one for me, is that I get into a cold winter period like this, and when it's hot composting outside, and some people can manage it, but I don't want a hobby. I'm not looking for more work. Some people can manage it, but for me in cold weather, it's a pain. You have to go out there and manage a hot compost system. With this, if worse comes to worse and you get a long period of cold where you can't compost outside and you have food waste from the holidays and such, just add more buckets. It's no big deal if you get to the end of the process and you can't do that final burial step of your bokashi. Just take the bucket full of food, put it in a cool place, and wait, and that's fine too. So for me, it's much more flexible, it's much more scalable, it's easier to do, it takes less time, and it accepts more food. Let me show you how it actually works. All right, I'm going to do a little demonstration here of how to bokashi, if that is indeed a verb. And it's not going to be a long demonstration because there's not that much to it, but you can see this bucket already has some food waste in it. And as distasteful as it is to look at somebody else's compost, got eggshells in there, you can see I've got some macaroni in there, leftover tomatoes, coffee grounds, all sorts of stuff. And what I'm going to add to it is this bucket here, which has rice and baked goods and potato peels and so on. And the process goes basically that you just dump it in, throw on a little bit of that Bokashi bran that I was talking about, this is the stuff, and then just mash it down to be as compact as you can make it. Just trying to drive the air out of it a little bit and make more fit, to tell you the truth. And then seal up the lid, and next time you have food waste, you can add that as well. All right, getting set up with Bokashi is super easy and inexpensive. All you need are 2 buckets and a lid. And the way it works is the food waste goes into the first bucket, which nests into the second bucket, which then makes a spot for the excess liquid. As this starts to break down, it starts to release liquid, that will drip into the second bucket, which you can periodically empty. That's the only maintenance on this system, basically. But for that to work, I have to have some holes in the first bucket. So this is the only tricky step, and it's not all that tricky. You flip the bucket, take your drill, and drill in basically between 15 and 20 dispersed all over the bottom of this bucket here. And so on. All right, with that job done, I've got holes in the bottom of this bucket here. I'm not sure if you can see those on camera. And then it's just a matter of nesting them together like this. I find that a bucket of this size, a 5-gallon bucket, is good enough for the food waste that my family of 4 produces in a week or a little over a week. So I have to change the buckets every week and a half or so. You can get these buckets at your local home improvement store like I did, because it was just an easy, convenient way for me to do it, and they're not too expensive. Or you can reuse what you have on hand. Any 5-gallon bucket is fine. The only thing I will say is, and this may just be a personal observation, is the ones that are white tend to get brittle and break down a lot sooner. So I ended up with those ring lids that you put onto these. You have to take those on and off quite frequently, and I ended up with breaking around the outside rim here. So I changed to colored ones, and they seem to hold up a little bit better or become a little less brittle. Another way of solving that lid problem is that I tried to use something new this time, it's brand new to me, is this Gamma Seal lid that I found online. It's something like this here. And I put that on my Amazon store if you want to try it out as well. And what it works like is that it now makes a lid that you can just screw off the top of it there. So that's something I tried, or I'm trying this time. I'm going to see if that works out a little bit easier. And I guess this is what it looks like all installed there. It has a ring around the outside and the center portion, which you can just screw out when you want to put food in or when you want to empty it. All right, I'm out here in the garden, and I've gone ahead and dug about an 18-inch deep hole out of my heavy soil here, and I'll dig in the Bokashi now. It really is just as easy as dump out the bucket, which has all the waste in it, and begin to cover it over with the soil. And while you do that, just to give the soil bacteria a chance to start to integrate the Bokashi you can mix that around a little bit with the soil, and that helps it to break down a little bit faster. My experience has been that if you go back to this, even as soon as 3 or 4 weeks later, the bokashi is basically integrated into the soil already. All right, thank you so much for watching the video today. And if you have any questions or comments, please leave those below the video.